In this video, I am going to be talking about the art of transmutation. So, starting off simple, what is transmutation? In simplest terms, it's taking one thing and changing it into something else. You're transforming it, right? Turning it into a different form. And this is something that is often applied to our emotional experiences, our emotional states. We often talk about transmuting these emotions, feelings, experiences through art. And for me, this definitely comes through when I journal. Now, I was talking to someone recently and they were going through a tough time and they were asking, how do I process and deal with these emotions? And I was sharing that for me, it's very powerful to journal to transmute these emotions. And they were like, yeah, I've tried journaling. It doesn't do anything for me. It just must be like a you thing. And while it's true that we all experience the art of transmutation in our own way, journaling is just the way for me. When I asked more follow-up questions about the way in which this individual journaled, it became very clear that we were doing two completely separate activities. There is a huge difference between someone journaling in this very conscious mind state, where they are kind of just writing down what they're feeling in a very matter-of-fact way, where they're saying, today this happened. It made me feel like this. I didn't like it. This is this. There is, and between that and between someone who is taking those experiences and almost writing about them in a way that turns them into archetypes. They are in this flow state where they have access to what they normally wouldn't have access to in this really conscious mind state. And instead, they are connecting in with something more cosmic, something on a much more metaphysical level. And so they are taking these feelings and emotions, and they're not just like point blank writing them down, they are turning them into art, whether that's prose poetry, whether it's poetry, whether it's actually physically painting, like making a painting, making art, drawing. It could also be dancing. Have you ever seen someone dancing and you can just tell that they're transmuting so much out of themselves into this art form? I feel like spiritual dance is something that is incredibly powerful when it comes to moving emotions. It could also be something like cooking. Have you ever tasted food from one person versus another? And it could be the exact same recipe, but you can tell the emotion and the energy that went into that cooking. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the art of transmutation. It really is about getting into this flow state, this creative state, where you are taking your own experiences and emotions and you are kind of expunging them out of you and transforming them in a way where they become almost like archetypes, where they almost become no longer about your experience, but something that can be applied and understood in the collective. You are working with something more cosmic, almost like mythology, like the same way that our ancient ancestors told these mythological stories, and they weren't literal. They were speaking to something in our subconscious. They were working with archetypes, and those archetypes serve to really transmute and work with these energies within us. That is, once again, what I am referring to when I'm talking about the art of transmutation. So if you are kind of just saying, okay, I'm going to work on this emotion, and you're sitting down and you're like overthinking, you're way too much in that mind space, and you're kind of not just letting things flow through you, you're not getting into that state, that flow state, it's going to be very hard to reach that same level of transmutation as someone who is. So, to recap a little bit, in my opinion, you know that something is a part of this art of transmutation when it can suddenly be applied to the whole because you have made this archetype out of it that speaks to all of us on this soul level, on this subconscious level. And I think that it's also important that art stems from emotion. Once again, you don't want to be overly in this mind space. You want to kind of sink into the heart. And you really see that when you are working from the heart and you're turning these energies into something abstract or lyrical, something beautiful, it's going to speak to so many people, not just yourself. And I notice that even if I reread my own prose poetry when I'm going through a hard time, I can literally feel these energies shifting inside me. It's very different than when I'm just, like venting to a friend about something. It's a completely different experience. Both are valuable, but they're different.